Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 266. Ethanol gas is garbage. Okay, so why do I say this? So I've been noticing over the course of the last couple of years, I have a lot of cars because I have a lot of drivers in my house. I've been noticing and I have old cars with carburetors because I have kids and I don't want to ruin the carburetors with the ethanol gas. So I've been using ethanol-free gas from time to time in certain cars. And it would appear as if to me, anecdotally speaking, that ethanol gas with ethanol in it, pretty much the typical American gas these days, is far worse in terms of gas mileage than ethanol-free gas, because occasionally I do buy ethanol-free gas, and the cars appear to perform better, and they get way better gas mileage in my own mind. And this is just anecdotal, and I had no way to prove it until this weekend. And so I went on a long road trip. I drove from my house to Seattle. And I did some math here. By the way, I just want to let you know, I got a 5 on the calculus advanced placement test, and I also got an 800 on the math SAT. So I'm pretty bright at math, and I was also a math minor in college. And so here you go. I drove from here to Seattle, and it was 318 miles. And so what I did was I fueled up my car. It was a 2007 Suburban, 5.3 liter Vortec motor. And it has a Thule on top, one of those things that you can pack a whole bunch of garbage in because I have a bunch of kids. So it gets worse gas mileage because of that, because of a little air resistance. But nonetheless, that I had the Thule on top both there and back to Seattle. So what I did was I fueled up my car and I drove 318 miles to Seattle, and I got, based upon the Chevy meters, 18.7 miles per gallon on the way to Seattle. And it was a little drizzly. I had a little bit of wind in my face, not too much, and the conditions were pretty good for driving, and I got 18.7 miles per gallon. On the way back, I still had fuel in my tank, obviously, and I drove back, and I drove 82 miles from Seattle towards my house. And at 82 miles, I filled up. So what I did was I looked at the meter, and I figured out I probably still had 10 gallons of gas in my tank, which was ethanol free. And so what I did was I got 10 gallons of ethanol gas in my tank at that point in time. And I decided that would take me all the way home. And I figured that out. And so now I know I have a half mixture, exactly half a mixture of ethanol gas and actually a half a mixture of ethanol-free gas. And so now I can do some math. And then I drove the extra 236 miles back to home. Now, on the way back from Seattle, with a partial road trip with ethanol-free gas and the majority of which with ethanol gas, I got 17.2 miles to the gallon. So on the way to Seattle, I actually got 8.7% better gas mileage going to Seattle than I did on the way back. The federal government actually says it's 3% difference. Well, now I'm saying it's garbage because this is a pretty good study. Now here's the other thing. I drove back from Seattle, and I drove a lot of the way, 82 of the miles, with ethanol-free gas. So I used that 18.7% to try to calculate what is the real ethanol miles per gallon. And so I did 18.7%, or 18.7 miles per gallon for 82 miles. And then I calculated it out, and I said, what would I have had to drive with the half and half ethanol free and 10% ethanol gas for 236 miles? And it turns out with the half and half mixture, I got 16.68 miles per gallon. Now, I also did a little bit more math in my head. I said, let's assume that ethanol degrades miles per gallon in a linear fashion, okay? And meaning that if I had 5% ethanol gas, and it was 16.68%, what would it be if I had 10%, like a full tank of ethanol-free gas? And because I had no way to drain my tank, it would have been 14.66 miles per gallon on the way back, which means with the half and half gas, I got 12.11% better gas mileage with the ethanol-free. And if it were pure ethanol gas, if I'm correct in my assumption, which I could be wrong, by the way, I realize that I could be wrong with this, I got 27.6% better gas mileage with the ethanol gas, or with the ethanol-free gas, which means the load of crap that the federal government's selling you about the 3% is completely bull hokey, and it's a lie. It's something that you shouldn't pay attention to. Now, I do admit I got a little bit of headwind on the way out to Seattle, and on the way back, I got a side wind, and it was a little bit gustier, and I got a little bit more rain on the way back from Seattle. So the driving conditions were a little bit different. So I don't know if they actually favored me going to Seattle or coming back from Seattle. But nonetheless, Ethanol-free gas appears to be dramatically better in terms of gas mileage in a 2007 Suburban with a 5.3 Vortec motor. And so let's say the true mileage is you actually get 12.11% better gas mileage with the ethanol-free gas. So think about this. You have 10% ethanol in your gas. Think about this. It means that if you drove ethanol-free gas, you would actually burn less petroleum products burning ethanol-free gas than you would be ethanol-free gas or ethanol gas with ethanol in it. Or do you understand that? Meaning that it actually degrades the gas mileage more than the amount of ethanol that goes into it, which means you actually have to burn more petroleum products when you add ethanol to the gas than if you had ethanol-free gas, which should bother everybody because it's obviously not accomplishing what it was set out to do. Now let's just say the full ethanol gas calculation, which I do agree this is speculative. I'll actually have to do that experiment one day. 27.6% difference. That's a massive difference. And if that's true, if that is true, then this whole ethanol gas conversation is over. That ethanol gas is far worse for your vehicle. Plus, it's far worse for the motor. It's far worse for the lines. Ethanol creates water when it sits around too long. It gums up the motor and actually decreases the efficiency of your vehicle. So based upon what I've seen in my traveling to Seattle and back, and I try to control for all the circumstances, that not only is ethanol bad for the motor, but it actually costs more to throw ethanol gas in your motor, even though it's cheaper, than just to throw the best premium non-ethanol gas into your motor. It's actually cheaper to burn non-ethanol gas in your motor, and it's better for your motor, it's better gas mileage, and it's better for the environment, which means, so this is something you got to think about. If you throw 10% of ethanol into your gas and it gets 20% cheaper than the ethanol gas, it means it's heavily subsidized by the government. There's no way the free market would ever do that, which means the government is subsidizing something that doesn't make any sense. And honestly, if you have an ounce of logic and reason in your brain and you've actually been paying attention to what the federal government does, that makes a lot of sense. Federal government never does anything properly. It always subsidizes the wrong way. It never subsidizes the correct way. And the reason why that is because if it is the correct way, if it's actually better gas mileage and cheaper, the market will figure it out and it will go that way. But if you want more ethanol in your gas when it's bad for motors, bad for the environment, bad for fuel efficiency, you have to subsidize it to force people to actually do it. And so anyway, ethanol gas is garbage. And this is another economics lesson. I know a lot of people don't listen to these, but please like or subscribe, get the mass, and pray your daily rosary, everybody. And God bless you all. God bless you all. Bye.